Foreword. The seed of this paper is my late father's advice: always be with the oppressed. In my 74 years, I have realized that people who humiliate, look down upon, and insult others have some deficiency. They are in an insatiable thirst for respect. They crave dignity. They have rigid defense shields against being ridiculed and avoided. And from what I've read in books, they have a perpetual longing for love and warm embrace, which was denied to many of them in infancy. So long as the search for reverence remains personal, it does not pose a social problem. Yet the demand for prestige, hunger for acceptance in society, and inferiority complex go beyond individual crave and become transmitted into a social setting. It poisons politics and leads to detrimental dimensions for national unity. Search for social prestige shows itself in two opposing lifestyles: conservative or traditional lifestyle versus Western or modern lifestyle. From the Ottoman Tanzimat of the 19th century to the present, we see that the dominant lifestyle of power holders in Turkey is the Western lifestyle. This elite, strategically supported by Western powers, claim the right to look down upon the underdog and feel assigned a duty by the West for a forced mission civilisatrice upon their people, an act of internal Orientalism. Famous Turkish leftist poet and thinker, late Attila İlhan, called such elite as cultural compradors of the West. Of the historically oppressed underdog of the periphery, some expected that if they chose the imposed westernization, they might also join the class of ruling elites of the country. And some did. But they had to be slaves to a certain convention, let alone questioning or challenging it. Even a minor distrust or hesitation on Western worldview was heresy, ending in ostracism from the elite powerhouse. And excommunication and exclusion were not a bearable pain. To be branded as a peasant, religious zealot, regressive, hick, or enemy of progress was a terrible punishment, especially in the lumpen arts and sports community. Hence, such aspirants were scared and terrorized to toe the line. This essay intends to search for the roots of the clashing lifestyles in Turkey that led to polarization in the Turkish political arena, with factors coming from the depths of history. It also focuses primarily on the psychological and socio-psychological aspects of the conflict. The endeavor actually started as a rich-referenced, semi-academic study in English for Westerners who had a prejudiced view of Turkey. The aim was to address the scientific roots of today's political schism, thereby questioning the power of the 600-year-old Ottoman Devshirme administration, whose rule ended with the People's Democratic Revolution of July 15, 2016. As my work on the Ottoman state system progressed, I realized that the schism between the central ruling Devshirme elite and the ruled Riaya in the periphery encompassed not only history, but a wide variety of disciplines. Structure of the central Devshirme system, history of Ottoman rural realm, Seljuks, Central Asian steppe state philosophy, nomadic culture, anthropology, sociology, ethnology, psychology, social psychology, political science, Islam, Alawite-Sunni relations, Muslim-non-Muslim relations, rebellions, military coups, the Istanbul Guild, the agricultural system, elite folk art, music, literature, westernization, Tanzimat, the process of evolving into a republic, educational philosophy, Ataturk, medieval Europe, comparison of the Western and Ottoman political philosophies and civilizations were the disciplines to be tackled. Furthermore, it is next to impossible to describe a being called Turk, incomprehensible, unpredictable, and a gray area that drives an outside observer crazy. Further was the need to search for the reasons for Ottomans lagging behind Europe. As Ottoman victories and conquests stopped, and the decline started, the administration could not pay the salaries of janissaries. Hence, the need for novel solutions for rational, disciplined budget systematic. Modernization measures were protested by the janissaries, and the viziers were lynched for such efforts, and such reactions persisted through centuries of vicious cycle. To summarize, it was a Herculean job to research the wide-ranging, multidisciplinary review of Turkey's historical political schism by one person. Also, the job of writing a semi-academic book with a reference in every sentence was putting a straitjacket on my brain, getting it into an iron discipline, destroying the human touch of my message. Mevlana Rumi's famous metaphor is well worth mentioning here. Just as sugar melting in water, like the colors of the art of marbling Ebru, knowledge melts in the brain rather than staying as heterogeneous patches side by side in the brain. As the homogeneous knowledge builds up in the subconscious, it instinctively spills out of the brain in a spontaneous flow. A flow coming from the subconscious, from the soul. One cannot stop pouring out. I guess I couldn't quite make it, so I decided to push aside everything. The references of the thousands of pages of books I've read, put aside my English book preparations, and wrote the comprehensive, short Turkish summary for the Turkish audience, the original work of this translation. As masters paper down their arguments in striking, gripping, persuasive ways, in short sentences. For amateurs, references come as lifesavers. And for me, especially with the chapters on psychology. I wish every line in this short, intense book would introduce something of value to the reader and lead him or her to a deeper level of reflection. I also look forward to receiving feedbacks and reactions to this trial, from the most hostile attacks to the best intended and constructive ones, to further mature my analysis. As I was writing my book, my most pressing concern was of rejecting my Ottoman heritage, as did the early republic's founders. What if someone who reads my book gets angry at the ruling Deşirme and refuses our Ottoman grandfathers like early Republican revolutionaries? Turkey, since the early 19th century, has been in an identity crisis. The pendulum, which has been swinging between temporal and spiritual lifestyles for 200 years, needs a little more time to come to a standstill, a sound middle point, so that the chaos in people's minds finds peace and the modern Turkish identity can be established. Lastly, my words of introduction to my international readers. As we humans are members of the same global family, many other peoples may see their similar problems in the lines of this humble work, and even identify with them. I hope this book could also be useful for them as well as we, the Turks.